Right, so welcome to this month's edition of the Poetricity Live experience. We are continuing to look at the poems that are being showcased for potential inclusion in our next book project, which is Stage for Your Brilliance to Flow. Right, okay, so I'm going to read the first piece. Let me put that in the chat and then I'll read it. Bear with me. Okay. All right. Okay. So this one is called Entity. Identity. I, the entity. How I see what I see when I look at the entity known as me. When I say I, that's the one to whom I refer. I, the entity, identified as me. Tell me, what do you see when you observe this entity known as me? I, the entity you see. Labels come in handy, pointing while trying to nail it. But do you know me? Do I know me? The entity in front of me. I'm not sure where that echo is coming from. I'm going to mute everybody for now, and then we'll unmute again. Right, where did I get to? I'll reread that. Do I know me, the entity in front of you, beyond form, beyond mind, beyond separation, roles, results, relationships, recognized features? I, the entity, you, the entity, we, the entity, the one least seen, the identity of the one of which I am an entity. I'm going to read it again because it's kind of slightly longer than most, and it takes some taking in. Identity. I, the entity. How I see what I see when I look at the entity known as me. When I say I, that's the one to whom I refer. I, the entity identified as me. Tell me, what do you see when you observe this entity known as me? I, the entity you see. Labels come in handy, pointing while trying to nail it. But do you know me? Do I know you? Do I know me, the entity in front of you, beyond form, beyond mind, beyond separation? Roles, results, relationships, recognized features. I, the entity. You, the entity. We, the entity. The one least seen. The identity of the one of which I am an entity. Right. So the invitation is to reflect on that and just to share anything that comes up for you, anything you see, anything you don't see, anything you understand, don't understand, whatever comes up for you. And bear in mind, you've been muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
I'm just glad Kate's identified herself now this morning.
That's a good one, Marielle. I like that.
I'm sorry about the background noise. I've got a dog chewing a bone here, so
I guess there's much.
I hope it's not interfering too much.
Yeah, you go ahead. I'll tell you if it becomes an issue.
Will you? And then I'll have to resort to something else. It's a deep one.
Yeah, it is. I admit.
But I guess our identity changes from day to day when we get into different challenges.
Mm,
Do we really know who we are
mm,
in situations? I mean, to be very personal, I'm thinking of Kate today. Am
mm.
I right, Kate? This was a significant day for Ekama. Was it today?
You're on mute, Mama Kate. You're on mute.
Yeah, you are right, Muriel, but it was on the 19th. It's past now. But
Yes,
July
but
is
I was
right.
thinking of the celebration of her life. When was
Yes.
that? Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I guess I don't know. It's a deep one. When did you write it, Frank?
Interesting enough, this one got inspired by, I think it might have been even Graham who was preaching in church, and I said something about identity or something like that. And I just looked at the wordplay on entity, identity, and who is the entity? What is it that we're pointing to? So that was kind of where it came from, and it just expanded from there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got many layers. So I just thought it'd be interesting to explore, because the book itself, S.P.A.C.E, the first part of it is seeing our true essence. And that's what I'm trying to point to. What that S is for seeing the true essence of who we are. And that's the idea of looking at, okay, what part of us do we look at when we're trying to identify ourselves? I love what you're saying about the fact that circumstances sometimes make us feel like we're almost morphing and showing different parts of ourselves. And again, part of our exploration is that who we really are, or do we go deeper than that to find the essence of who we are? So that kind of is, I don't know if that helps. Mama Kate, were you gonna chirp?
Yeah, I was going to say something. You see, depending on who you are talking to, then you get the answer you get.
Right.
Now, because it is me, because I identify with who I am through who I am. I want to say that I know who I am because I know who God says I am.
Right. Okay.
However, if I wasn't in Christ, if I was just, a high-powered bank, first bank, not first bank. What's that woman that I just resigned? I hear her salary every month is 5 million. I'm not saying I don't know her background, but let's assume I'm worldly like that, and all I identify, what identifies me is my status, my power, my position.
Okay.
Then it differs from I know who God says I am.
I hear you.
Now I'll be thinking, society says I'm not tall. Society says I'm not slim. Society says I'm not this. Society says I don't earn 5 million. Society a month, and so forth and so on. I don't wear good clothes. Therefore, I don't belong.
Right. I love
and
that.
that is when and that is the battle we face in homes today that are trying to steer their offspring towards the Bible, or to see themselves through the eyes of the Bible, what God says they are, and what society tells them, and their peer pressure and everything tells them outside. I don't know what that making sense, but I think I know what I'm trying to say.
You're making absolute sense, because actually, if I scroll down a bit to where it says roles, results, relationships, recognized features, that's what's being called out there. Is that, are you being identified by the roles you play? Are you being identified by the results you achieve? Are you being identified by your relationships? I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm an uncle, I'm an auntie, I'm a whatever. Are you being your recognized feature? You're tall, short, blonde or not, or whatever, gray hair, no gray hair, no hair. So it's kind of, the idea is we're exploring how far deep do you want to go before you find a sense of identity that is stable, that is immovable, that you can hold as a center thread, almost like an anchor. And even though others might recognize you and you might be defined by everything else, your sense of self-worth is not anchored on something that is inconsistent, something that is subject to change, something that is determined by other people's opinion. So that's kind of the invitation here in this piece. I mean, there's other layers, but even just on that alone. And I'd like to go back to what you were saying there about, because I mean, we can't assume that everybody listening to this would necessarily come from a Christian context. So
Right.
I think what would be helpful is what God says you are, as far as you see, is it that gives you that sense of solidness, or that sense of assurance, or that sense of safety, really, in a way?
Well, the fact that I'm made in his image and likeness, and that nothing can change that. Whether I mess up or don't mess up, whether I measure up even in my own head, because sometimes the fact is even in my own head, or in the eyes of society, whether even in your family, those whom you think those you represent, or those you are working for, working with, or slaving away for, making sacrifices for, think or appreciate you for who you are, or even see the efforts you are making. And even if they don't say thank you, thank you, thank you every day, by their actions, you know that they're appreciative, or they value contribution, in whatever measure, big, small, financial, moral, I don't know. Anyway.
I kind of like what you were saying there about the idea of separating your sense of worth from performance, separating your sense of worth from opinion. Because I think the invitation here is to find something that is stable as a foundation, so that everything else that may change hovers over it, but because you're grounded on that which is stable and cannot be changed or moved because it's settled already, you can then have a sense of affirmation in there. Oh, we've lost Mama Kate. So over to you now, Muriel.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I was just thinking about what she was saying about, and you're saying about being stable and having an anchor. I think the basis of it all is that people know that they're loved, really, because if they don't sense that, and I mean, I've got 7 grandchildren, and they can all put different labels on me as they see me, because I'm not the same to all of them at the same time. But because I know who I am, I know that, it doesn't affect me, maybe, when they say, not rudely, but, oh, Nan, you've got selective hearing or something like that, different things like that. It doesn't affect me when you know deep down, who you are and you're anchored. But I mean, I was thinking of last Sunday, there was a lady who came into the church where I walk down to every Sunday because I can't get to your particular one, because I have no transport and it takes me just half an hour to walk down. I've been very anchored there, if you like. But this particular lady came in and she said that she used to go to a church at Burnt Oak. And of course that rang a bell with me, which I had to speak to her later about, but it wasn't IGC. But the church had moved quite far away. And she'd found us on the internet because she lived within reason where she could get to us. And she said, I was a Pentecostal, she said. We've got the hallelujahs and we've got the amens and we've got the dancing. She said, but I seem to experience love here. So I guess my bottom line is it's all to do with love. And if people love and accept you, you'll find your identity. I mean, it's like young people, Frank, when they want to please their peers, they're maybe not their true identity.
I like that. I like that. So what we're saying here then is that there's an essence of love which creates a foundation for people to be anchored. And some people in search of it because they're not anchored in one that they can identify with already, going back to what Kate was saying, that she's loved already, then they might begin to take on these different identities, just seeking that love.
Yes, it's all to do with love, I think.
I hear that.
Seek that all the time. They want to be accepted for who they are to get their true identity. But, you know, we shouldn't be people pleasers, but I guess we are.
Right. Okay. So that's actually a very interesting point you've made there about people pleasing, but we'll try not to go down that rabbit hole necessarily. That's a subject for another day. But I think it's interesting the point you've made here about love being something that innately we desire in terms of it manifesting as some being accepted and loved for the basic of who we are, not all the other things that change, but that to know that you're anchored in a love that's not changing gives you the confidence. I'm not sure confidence is the right word, but we'll go.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. To actually then go, yep, I'm secure enough here then to define myself and not allow myself to be defined necessarily by someone else, I think is what I'm hearing. Okay, Mama Kate, do you want to come back on that and add anything to that?
Sometimes, well, not sometimes, most times I feel sorry for those who have not arrived at this stability, so to speak. And you can't force it. There's no way, no amount of your preaching will get them to that. I think it takes life years of experience. When I was 21, sure, I was very flimsy, you know, and so forth and so forth and so on. But now you've got to a stage where you've got to a stage that you know that I mean, what else will I need to wear? What else? Fashion comes and goes. High shoe will come, low shoe will come, slim, high, this, that. It doesn't matter. Bottom line is, are you happy where you are? Do you know who you are? And there's no other way. If you try to tell, my daughter is a fashion, what, designer freak. She loves labels. I mean, I would rather go to Primark and buy a t-shirt for, I don't know, $4.99. Does the same thing. Not that one. It's not the same. Why is it not the same? Because it hasn't got, I don't know, maybe Gap or HMS or whatever on it. I say, but they are the same thing. Oh, no more. This quality is not as okay. There's no other way. She will get to it. When she's my age, she'll be remembering what I told her. I said, look, when you get to my age, you'll be remembering. I will not be there, but you will remember what I'm telling you. Because all this, you're getting your money for nothing. But if somebody had told me that 30 years down the line, would I have listened? No. So this is their time. Let them be stupid and go until one day they'll come to that stage too.
I'm not sure that's the word I would use, but I think I get what you're trying to say. I do get what you're trying to say. So there's a sense in which people are on a journey then to find their way to where they can feel grounded in something that's solid enough for them to make choices that are not necessarily predicated on what other people might think or how other people might judge certain things, is what I'm hearing. Anything else on this piece?
What the media, especially the media that is anti-church, I know we are not, they will call it religion, but we know it's not religion. Anti-relationship with God, would say, is that don't believe that stuff. It's 2,000 years ago. It doesn't really matter. How can the blood that dried up 2,000 years ago be cleansed? How can it do you this? You can't even believe it. You can't. They'll do and do. And unfortunately, most of them are also literary people like you. They have the power of the pen. They are eloquent. They write well. Even if they don't write, they can get somebody who can to write and publish. So they affect and infect the minds of people, and they're trying to push us away from the straight and narrow road. I don't know I know the answer is prayer. God.
So, okay, so picking up on that point and maybe slightly stretching it somewhat. So if we take a religion agnostic approach to this conversation, so to say, okay, let's accept that people have different interpretation of what religion is and what it looks like. But let's look at spirituality for a second as a foundational basis, which may lead people to then look at religion and say, okay, what do I want to affiliate with at that level? Now, the point being that there's an essence of someone that goes beyond mainly their intellect and mainly their physical presence, which is the calling out of which entity are you identifying with? If it's your physical prowess and whatever, what happens when that starts to wane? So you get older. What happens when you begin to lose certain functions? Does that mean you're less of who you were? If you identify with your spiritual nature, which is constant regardless of what happens to your physical elements, and sometimes even your mental, some people cannot articulate, but they know within themselves what they know. Does that make sense? So the invitation here is for people to look beyond those things and factor in that there's a part of them I like to call awareness, essence. In our parlance, we will say spirits, right? We will point to that. We'll talk about soul and then we'll talk about spirit. So the idea is that if people anchor in what is their spiritual identity, that identity carries within it the idea, and that is assuming that we accept that what we will call God, other people might call universe, is a loving presence that accepts you for who you are already. That gives people a foundation from which to be able to explore more freely if they choose whatever religious kind of path they might want to take. However, I think going back to what you're saying, Mama Kate, is I think what we have, though, is that there's so much distractions at the moment with all the other things that are happening at the other levels that people are not necessarily even centered enough, reflective enough to even be looking where we're pointing. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So before we move on from this piece, there's something I wanted to highlight, which is in the last verse where it says, I the entity, you the entity, we the entity. What do you hear when you take those three lines?
Read it again.
I the entity, you the entity, we the entity.
That we are intertwined.
And that's kind of something I don't want us to lose, is the fact that it is only when we begin to identify as that essence which is spiritual that we begin to see the possibility of that union, that we are connected.
Yeah.
That we are connected, made from the same stuff. But again, when we don't see that, it becomes easier, all the antagonism and all the being one against the other, all the being critical of other people and all the kind of negative energy we can put into the space where relationships are concerned. And it goes on to say that the one least seen, the identity of the one of which I am an entity. So that's now pointing to what is that one thing that we're all part of. That is the invitation. Can you hear me, Mama Kay? It looks like you're trying to. You've gone a bit faint for some reason. You were okay before.
Sort of in and out a bit.
Okay. Right. Anything else from you, Muriel, before we move on from this piece?
Well, I was thinking, I mean, even though I'm not sort of part of your identity at the moment, not being with you all on a permanent occasion, but I was thinking about identity in as much, maybe I'm off course with this, but what I would have seen of you when I saw you, I don't know that you're that person when you're in your home environment or with other people. If that's the identity that you wanted me to see in you and what I see today, we can all be very different actually in that. So when you say we observe when it's you, and what I saw a person that, because I haven't been with you all, but I still wanted to be here today, because I respected your standing and what you stood for and what you do. And I believe we can learn from each other. But maybe that's off course of what you're trying to get from us. I don't know.
Well, there's nothing I'm trying to get from you, but what is there for you? So whatever comes up for you is what this space needs, right? That's why we're here. There is no directive. It's just, okay, here's a piece to explore what comes up for you. And if that what comes up for you is, you're right in the first things you said, that ultimately, yes, people do have nuances that would come to light and come to play at different places, right? Depending on the context as it goes. There might be a core that runs through them, but there will be elements that would fluctuate depending on what's in the space and so. And you're right, until you begin to experience people in different spaces, then you begin to observe, okay, actually, I can see maybe this is here, this is there. But I think the invitation really in this particular piece is to say, acknowledge that all that exists, all that variance exists, but the core and the foundation to ground yourself in, for you to maybe be able to actually maintain a core, is to find something that is consistent. And that consistency goes back to what we were saying about love and being fully accepted at the level of the entity of spirit, at the level of the entity of our oneness.
Yeah, that reminds me of Wilbert actually, because in the 12 years of his Alzheimer's, he still had that, I wouldn't say joy, but even though his person was changing, he still knew his identity and where he had that anchor. So he was, always happy, as happy as you can be when you don't understand what life's about. So when you were speaking about, when our lifestyle changes, our appearances change and things like that, you need that solid identity to get through.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm guessing the dog is sleeping now because I can.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to move?
No, it's fine. We need your contribution, right?
Sorry.
No, don't worry about it. He's being dog, right? He's being dog. That's what he's.
But at least he's behaving.
Yeah, yes. Indeed.
That's a start. That's his identity today.
What I might do is I'll meet you when you're not talking, and when you need to talk,
yes,
to mute.
Please. I don't want.
Okay. All right. So let's look at the next one then, the pathway. Right, I read it. It's called the pathway. Moving from side to side, from uncertainty to certainty, from undesirable to desirable, seeking the path to freedom, soon back to where it all began. Energy draining, life sapping, paradox and ambiguity nesting in the path between. noticing what's so disconcerting at the very extremes. The beautiful lesson in every step. The result is the path, making it worth traveling. I'll read that again. It's called the pathway. Moving from side to side, from uncertainty to certainty, from undesirable to desirable, seeking the path to freedom, soon back to where it all began. Energy draining, life sapping, paradox and ambiguity nesting in the path between. Noticing what's so disconcerting at the very extremes. The beautiful lessons in every step. The result is the path, making it worth traveling. Kate, I see you rocking your head from side to side. Is something coming up? Unmute yourself, because we can't hear you now. You have to unmute yourself, Mama Kate.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how I can put it into words, what I think I'm hearing.
Okay, go on. Just give it a go. Whatever comes out is good.
Is that that footpath we are traveling on, some of it uncharted?
Yeah.
For majority uncharted, because we don't know what the next step is going to hold. You know?
I take that. I take that. Anything else?
Well,
Frank, what was it? Sorry, Mama Kate.
The uncertainty of life.
Yeah.
Of nobody knows tomorrow. However, you know, the hymn says, because of I can stay face tomorrow.
Yeah, because he lives, I can face tomorrow, I think is the word.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even though I don't know tomorrow, I can face tomorrow because I know somebody who is with me and will lead me through it.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll kind of put that on the shelf because I think that's important to come back to in terms of kind of the journey in itself anyway. This will link into the first piece we looked at as well. Okay, Muriel, you had some build on there?
I was going to ask you what the last line was. Was it result is in the path, making it what? Worthwhile, did you say?
Making it worth traveling.
Worth traveling.
The result is the path, making it worth traveling.
So you're talking about the result as we go along?
Yeah, so the invitation is to look at the journey and kind of where our tendency is to try and always seek what we like, right? So our focus is, this is uncertain, I want to try and make it certain. This is undesirable, I want to make it desirable. This feels constrictive, I want freedom. So the idea is we're always moving. When we notice we're not where we want to be, we're always, all our efforts is trying to get out of that condition and to make it what we think it should be. So then our focus is kind of darting. That's why it says moving from side to side. It's like, I notice, oh, no, this is it. So I need to be moving here. This is not right. So I need to be there because that's what's good. That's what's right. So that the invitation now is to look a bit deeper than just that surface of this is good, this is bad, and see something that is beyond that, something that the journey delivers, as opposed to just the outcome of being desirable or not desirable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, we can focus on that, but if we are of a disability or are, you know, we're not able to do what change from thing to thing, it's not possible. So it's just our focus, isn't it, really?
That is, I like what you're saying there. So you're saying that sometimes circumstances actually forces you to kind of, okay.
You can't move on the journey.
So how do you deal with it? How do you deal with that?
Well, once again, it comes to the anchor, doesn't it? You have to be content with your circumstances, and like Kate said about tomorrow, we just don't know. So we have to deal with what we're in this present moment in time, the reality of life.
So that takes us back to what Kate was saying about that whole idea of it's possible to deal with it, but you need that anchor, you need that assurance that you're not alone in that journey.
Yeah.
Yes. And there are also, Frank, there are also people who cannot, even though they know that where they are is wrong, and they know they should be moving to or facing a different direction. They haven't got that strength. I don't know whether it's strength of character or just physical or mental resilience to say, look, I can do something about it. I can move. There are those who cannot move because they are not strong enough to do so. Either they are not, either through health reasons, the fact that mentally they are not tough enough. I don't know whether the word is tough. I don't know. I don't know. They just can't do it. They know where they are is wrong, and they don't like to be where they are, but they cannot move on. And that's why we have so many people who end it all.
Right. Okay.
Yesterday they announced, I think it was yesterday, that Celine Dion, that she passed. And from what they were saying, she had a difficult background, and then
was it Celine Dion or Sinead O'Connor?
Sinead O'Connor. Sorry.
I thought so. Okay.
Just
her son died apparently.
Yeah. So her son had committed suicide like 18 months ago. So that's what led to this. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, there was a boy whose mom had been through a lot and sort of made it. And yet he, from what the papers say, he had been battling with mental issues. Escaped from a secure mental unit, and went and succeeded in ending it all. So he wasn't strong enough to take the knocks of life. The waves, the battering, the bashing. I don't know.
I'm glad that you used that idea of the waves and the bashing, because the wave also induces this side-to-side movement, doesn't it? It's like the waves are moving, and the invitation here is to actually say, okay, is the best way to navigate the wave to be fighting to move from one side of the wave to the next, or to learn to ride the wave in a way that once the wave passes, you're still standing? That's kind of the invitation here. Most of the struggles that we have with what would be our actual circumstances, and this is something that Muriel was pointing to, is this idea that things shouldn't be the way they are, they should be different. Which, fair enough, there's some cases for that, but they are how they are right now. How do you deal with that while at the same time being open to the possibility that they could change? So it's the, how do I deal with the reality of how it is right now, rather than my first focus is, no, it's not right, it shouldn't be this way, all my energy is pushing the other way. That is the invitation here. And I'd like to ask how you deal with that experientially. What has helped you, have you found helpful in those sort of circumstances? Muriel, I have to put you on mute, but you can come off mute if you have something to say on that.
Well, I've heard someone say once that grief is like waves that come upon you. You can be not expecting them, and all of a sudden it'll come over you. But I guess it's best to surf the wave and just know that they will come from time to time. But there are a lot of people who don't want to change. They don't like change in their lives, and some of them just want to stay where they are. So no, once again, it's about your anchor and your identity, and what do you want to move on? If there's help there to move on.
Yeah. I like that call for if there's help there. I love that. There's something I want to pull out just to kind of move the conversation forward in terms of in the path between noticing what's so disconcerting. Now, this is something that I know that traditionally we as human beings are not very good at, but it's an invitation. So here's my point. If something can't be the way it is, but it's already that way, the question is, what is it that disturbs me so much about things being this way? What is it in myself and about the way I am that means that I am uncomfortable with things being the way they are right now? That is something that helps us learn about ourselves. So that's one. The other thing is it talks about the beautiful lessons in every step. What have you learned about yourself while you're navigating it? And I'm going to admit here, one of the things I had in mind when I was writing that line is this idea that sometimes we feel that a certain circumstance is powerful enough, strong enough to break us, and we can't handle it. But actually what we discover is that off the back of it, there's a lot more we've got going for us. And the grace and the anchor that we have is so strong and stronger than we thought that actually doesn't result in the outcome that we were originally predicting while we were going into it. So I've said a lot there. So I just wanted to point in that direction. Do you have any build? Do you have any agreements, disagreements? All of them are welcome along those lines, especially from your own lived experience, because I think that's what's most valuable.
But that's where the number of years that life years come into play, because we know, again, the anchor that we have in Christ, because we know that these things will come to pass. They always do. They won't stay like that forever. So if we can only hang in there and persevere, then we find that in the long run, that's yesterday. Oh, that's tomorrow. How do they put it? That tomorrow tomorrow we feared yesterday is today, and we are still standing, so to speak.
I get the sense of what you're saying there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But only experience and maybe not just experience, only faith, only your anchor in God will get you there. And the fact that when you are still tottering and being tossed about, you have people who are holding you up. Either brethren who are praying for you, or family members who are there, or friends, good friends who are there, who, when you look back, you can see them standing there beside you. Mentally, you know in your mind or in your heart that God said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. You are not alone. Whatever you are going through, I'll be there, right there with you. I'll go through it with you. Then you stand firm. It's difficult. So what I'm trying to say, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, especially when you are going through it. But in the end, you survive.
Right. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. And there's something I heard you say there about this idea of actually, when you look historically, you find out that even when things have felt that bad in the past, you've managed to make it through. That's one thing. Secondly, when you're anchored in the idea that you're not alone, therefore there's support there for you, that again also helps you. So then you stay the course, but you learn about yourself as well. You learn about yourself, that you're stronger than you thought you were. And I think that that's kind of important. Also, I think if we change our focus from just trying to fight our way out from where we are, but actually be focused on what you can learn about yourself, learn about others in that situation, that creates a different focus, but also it creates an energy that sometimes actually allows the journey to be not as long as when we're not learning what's there for us to learn about it. That idea. Yeah. In that every event is in service of our evolution and identity. So the idea of going back to trying to, the first piece, my identity, actually is trying to tell me that the part of me that matters the most is not all the physical bits, not all the mental bits. There's actually the part of me that is part of the whole, that spiritual essence of who I am. That is the bit that's rock solid, that stays there. And that is the bit that's aware all the time when all the other parts of me are going through this evolution and transformation. Because as we've identified, we're not going to stay the same all the time. We're evolving. All these things are happening. We are born, and already we're growing. And already we're growing. We're on a journey that's heading towards a destination of sorts. But we are the ones who are observing and aware of all of that. The essence of who we are is beyond all that, and will remain, because it is that part of us that can't be destroyed. That's the thing I'm pointing to. Muriel, sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, I think I've just wakened up. I should have been in a different room from this dog. So, I mean, we're learning something every day. So forgive me for that.
It's all right. That's all right.
It's a bit late to have that reality, but
Never too late. That's the path, all right?
It just came to me. No, the thing is, it's all to do with what Kate said. You know, tomorrow brings different things, but we've got to deal with what's in today.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally feel it's not about I.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
We can't have it round I, because if it's round I, it's difficult, because it's never going to be what I want, what I think it should be. So it's accepting that it's how it is, and getting on with it.
I hear that. I hear that. I hear that. I hear the acceptance of reality as it is. And I see that. And I suppose what I'm pointing to in here is that how can what already is serve us the most and the best while we're in it? I think is the invitation here, is that, okay, what do I learn about myself? What do I learn about that which holds me, my anchor? What do I learn about others around me? Because obviously all those learnings are like gifts from the situation that already exists. That kind of is. Yeah, go on, Mia.
I'm still learning.
Yeah, we all are.
I'm still learning. And it changes from day to day.
Yes.
Thank God he gives me the grace to say, you got that wrong, or let's do it again, and do it like that tomorrow, but not to hold myself back because of that, because you know, I'll never get it all right. Never. But I'll try.
We keep trying. There's always room for improvements.
Yeah. A work in progress. We're all a work in progress.
Right.
Yes.
So here's the beauty of it. You have hit on where that was going. The result of the path, making it worth traveling. So the experience of evolving and learning is itself the gift in the experience. So it's that idea that we are open to that learning and evolving, which is a continuous journey. And the reason it's positioned that way is that if all we ever focus on is just the circumstances, then we're forever pivoting from happy to not happy, great but not great, blah, blah, blah. but we're not gaining most from the experience that's already there, which is actually, there's an opportunity in all of this to learn something that supports me and supports others as I move on.